Welcome to the Binge List. I am your host, Paul Chappell, and today we are reviewing the first 3 episodes of The Stand miniseries on CBS All Access. The Stand is a book by Stephen King. You probably already know that, but I think it bears mentioning because I'm not a big Stephen King fan. I've only read one of his books, The Shining. Wasn't blown away by his prose. Didn't revisit. I've seen a bunch of his movies, of course. Basically, the best adaptations of his work are the short stories. Of course, I'm talking about The Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile, stuff like that. But I'm not a huge Stephen King fan, not a big horror fan. Overall, if you've watched this channel for any length of time, you already know that I don't particularly care for horror. But I do like stories like this because it's presented more as a character driven ensemble thing, which I like. I did watch The Walking Dead for 4 or 5 seasons, something like that. So I do have a little bit of experience with this kind of thing. This is less of a horror show than The Walking Dead in the fact that there are no zombies and just a whole bunch of people die. If you don't know the plot, 99.4% of the population dies from a extremely contagious strain of the flu known as Captain Trips. It's a super flu. So the only people that are left are the people that have a natural immunity to this virus. This virus was developed in a lab. I think it was in California. One soldier got out of the lab after an automatic shutdown. And you see in the episode that he was actually released with the help of a guy called Randall Flagg, who is kind of this demonic persona played by Alexander Skarsgård, the brother of the guy that played Pennywise in the It series. So it has a supernatural aspect to it that's kind of weird. No zombies. The characters are kind of bland. I have to say that because it feels like none of them react the way a normal person would react. As far as seeing everybody in the world die, the characters just seem all to just kind of blasé about it. James Marsden plays I guess would be termed the main character, Stu Redman. He's one of the first people to come in contact with this soldier who has spread the virus all over the country. He gets put in a military holding facility to study him, but then everybody, spoilers, if you don't know anything about this, don't listen further. But he is put in this military facility, kind of like a CDC type place, but military, and he's being studied. But everybody in the facility, they die, and he just kind of, he doesn't have a dramatic reaction to anything. Things just keep happening to him. He escapes with the help of a general played by J.K. Simmons. That's another thing about this show. There's a lot of cameos by some well-known actors. J.K. Simmons, Heather Graham. They say even Stephen King's going to have a cameo at some point. Whoopi Goldberg is playing a character known as Mother Abigail Fremantle. She's basically this supernatural being, magic Negro, so to speak. Because Stephen King wrote this back in 1978, and that's a trope that he uses in a lot of his book, the magic Negro. He did it in The Shining. He did it in The Green Mile. And he did it in this story. She's another magical Negro who she reaches out to all the survivors through their dreams. And Randall Flagg is the demonic devil type persona who has these supernatural powers too. And he also reaches out to some of the survivors, some of who are either psychotic or just misguided in some kind of way, killers, whatever. He reaches out to them. He's in Las Vegas. is his headquarters. Mother Abigail's headquarters is in Colorado. She sets up a boulder-free zone where most of the survivors go to. So there's a lot of characters. And like I said, most of the reactions to the apocalypse are very, very blasé. No one really has a significant family that they lose. And what I mean by that is Stu Redman, he's pretty much a loner. His wife died a few years back. I think he said his wife died in a car crash. There's another character called Larry Underwood. He's a musician in New York. And his mother dies, but you get the feeling that he doesn't have much in the way of family either. And then there's a psychopath played by Owen Teague. His name is Harold Lauder. He has a crush on his babysitter. Him and his babysitter, or I should say his former babysitter, because they both have grown up a little bit and they're both adults by the time the plague hits, but he's still got a thing for her, and both him and his former babysitter, played by Odessa Young, her character's name is Franny Goldsmith. They team up and leave, but Franny Goldsmith's father dies, and like I said, nobody actually loses a significant number of people. None of these characters lose children or anything. It's either a parent or maybe a brother or sister, but that's it. So I don't feel like any of the characters have experienced enough loss for us to get that better reaction, or maybe that's the wrong word for it. The more emotional reaction that you would expect from somebody suffering this loss in this apocalypse. These characters are all kind of just, going through the motions. And I mean, that's what maybe that was the point in the novel. Like I said, I haven't read it. Not a big fan of Stephen King, so I don't know whether I'm missing something so far. Now, the series is good enough for me to want to continue to watch it. So there's that. There's going to be a total of 9 episodes. So the high production values more than anything has drawn me into it. I like to see high production values in a story like this, because it's kind of crazy to see the end of the world, and it's a little bit scary considering that we're going through a pandemic as we speak. It kind of gives it a little bit more weight. You look at, I couldn't help but thinking, what if COVID was more lethal than it is? I mean, it's very lethal. It's killed over 300,000 people in the United States alone. So but it's only like 2 or 3%, even though that's a lot of people. Don't get me wrong, but I just wondered, what if COVID had a 50% death rate? How would people react to it? Would more people wear masks? I think obviously they would. There would be a lot more support for things like shutdowns if the virus was more lethal. If people saw people dropping right in front of their eyes, but because the mortality rate is 2 to 3%, you see a lot of people just not even taking it seriously. So it made me think about those issues that we're experiencing now. It made it more real to me, and it made it really scary to think about if there's ever a virus that comes out that has a mortality rate like in this series, we are not going to be able to deal with it based on what I've seen in our current situation here in the United States, where, this pandemic has been politicized. So yeah, it's interesting to me just for that. I'm really interested to see what happens to the characters, and more than anything, I want to see how the characters who are obviously evil. I'm talking about Nadine Cross, played by Amber Heard. I'm talking about Randall Flagg, the Man in Black. You probably know that this character has carried over into some of Stephen King's other works. The Tower series, I think Matthew McConaughey played him in that Tower movie, that gunslinger movie. So It's interesting to see this character because Randall Flagg and there was another guy introduced, prisoner, who's a cop killer. And then there's Harold Lauder, who is a sociopath who pretends to be this good guy, but is definitely not a good guy. I'm really interested to see what these guys are going to do because they're conspiring. You can already see it happening, and they're the most interesting part. They're a lot more interesting than what I've seen in the supposed good guys in this series. So yeah, there's that. Also of note, Whoopi Goldberg was supposed to play Mother Abigail in the original miniseries that came out in 1994. She had other obligations. I think she was filming Sister Act 2 at the time, so she didn't get to play Mother Abigail. Ruby Dee played her instead. So this has been a long time coming for Whoopi Goldberg. I think she's probably one of the more interesting characters, and I want to see what happens with her character more than anything, as well as these, like I said, these villains, so-called villains in the show. So that's what's been keeping me watching, just the characters that are kind of at the fringes of the narrative so far. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got so far. It's not doing very well on Rotten Tomatoes. It's got a 54% rating from critics, and this is unusual. It has a 33% rating from the audience. And it has to be, I'm just guessing, it has to be people who are probably big fans of the books and they just don't like this adaptation. But I think it could get better. We'll see what happens. But that's all I got for today. I'd like to thank my subscribers and encourage you. Hit that subscribe button. Let me know what you think in the comments. Is this a good adaptation? Is it worth my while? Should I continue watching? Let me know in the comments. And ring that bell. You're already a subscriber, so you know when my next video drops. And I will see you when I see you. Thanks for watching.